Hey, good morning, Mika. Great to see you.
Good morning, Jari. Good to have you in Espoo again.
Yeah, lovely to be in Finland, and wow, it's almost 30 Celsius. It's such a warm day, I've been hearing from the team that it's been quite a not so great start for the summer.
Yeah, it's been great for software development, but maybe not for outdoors.
I see. Yeah.
But you brought the summer with you.
Yeah. I surely I did. I've been traveling quite a bit. I went to the world tours in Zurich, and it was nearly 40 degrees, the hottest day in Switzerland, and then in Toronto, I think they were having heat records, and then Boston. So glad to bring the sunshine into the Valo offices as well.
Great.
So my name is Jari Salomaa. I'm the CEO, co-founder of Valo.ai. I'm here joined by Mika Ståhlberg, Valo CTO and co-founder. This is Valo podcast series. So we're going to be talking about topical topics around the Salesforce ecosystem, security costs, productivity, governance. And on this edition and this version, we're going to touch base specifically introducing ourselves as co-founders and give you the origin story for Valo. So let me start by a quick introduction on me. So I'm originally from Finland, but been living in San Francisco for almost 20 years. I initially moved there with Nokia and then worked for a number of cybersecurity companies, FireEye, maybe most known of those, and then moved to Salesforce and worked in the Salesforce platform product team as a product manager for quite disruptive products like Salesforce Shield, event monitoring, transaction security. I also built a product called Salesforce Security Help Check, and then some big data stuff around big objects, and really had a great time. And then then moved to ServiceNow. We had a similar role. And then in 2023, started Valo with Mika. And I remember when I worked at Salesforce, I think it must have been maybe 2013 or 2014, I contacted friends from Nokia who then worked with F-Secure, where you were a CTO, talking about our long-standing requirement to run virus and threat scanning inside Salesforce instances, and then we actually met in San Francisco and had a good discussion, and I think that was the first time we met.
Yeah.
Would you like to give a quick overview to your career and how we met from your side to the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Mika Ståhlberg. I'm based in the Helsinki region in Finland, and I've had a long career in the cybersecurity industry or cybersecurity in general. So 25 years now. Prior to starting Valo with Jari, I was the head of security at Aura, which makes these smart rings, and before that I was for almost 17 years at F-Secure in multiple roles, always one foot on the threat intelligence side and one foot on the R&D side. When I was at F-Secure, that's when we met 10 years ago, probably almost exactly. I remember flying to San Francisco and meeting a Finnish-speaking product manager at Salesforce. That was very exciting, and big things happened as a result.
Right. Yeah, I think now the cloud protection, it's called WithSecure, and but that solution is still around. And I remember when then in 2023 I left ServiceNow. I was in Lake Tahoe. I think it was springtime, spring skiing. And we took a video call and also connected with our third co-founder Hannu from the Hill, and talked about the core problems that are still present in these big business systems like Salesforce, and touched base on identities, and I remember when we talked about how easy it is and how good technologies exist to basically authenticate Jari to a mobile bank or Salesforce and do multi-factor authentication, but the little solutions to actually do the same for apps or AI and understand what they access in Salesforce overall. Would you go down the memory lane and and roll back to 2023 as we're studying the company from your point of view?
Yeah. So essentially that's what happened. Like me and Hannu, we'd been talking for a while that, hey, we should do something together. But then really when the three musketeers came together on the call and we were thinking about the problems that we've seen and what we see companies, and then the idea was to build something for businesses and what are the problems that the businesses are having. And really one key problem is that the identity is really the security barrier in the modern world. There is very little in terms of a perimeter, like a firewall or even that everything would be stored on a laptop. So data is stored in various different services and those services are connected with each other. And the identity being the barrier means that the identity management has become a key in that. There is this zero trust thing that you look at the identity of the person who's coming in and whether or not that person has the ability to do something. But the challenge that remains is that there are more than just humans that are accessing these systems and this data. The systems are accessing, like, for instance, Salesforce very commonly has hundreds of different applications that are connecting into Salesforce, sometimes using human identities, sometimes using machine identities or non-human identities, but and oftentimes multiple applications sharing the same identity. And how do you actually do this identity management in this space? And also, the problem is that while usually the human users get restricted access, at least they don't get administrative access like by default. You hear these horror stories about Salesforce orgs with has dozens, hundreds, even more administrators, but usually a normal user to Salesforce, for instance, doesn't get administrative privileges. But these machine-to-machine connections tend to get that because it's easy. You don't even want to think about, okay, what would be the right level of access, and should we create a separate user for this? You bundle them all into one integration user, and that's how you do it. But then you lose all the visibility, all the manageability. You don't really know what's going on and what the risks are that you're taking.
Mm-hmm. I remember starting from 2023, we were quite fast to find a good design partners to work with us, even though we didn't really have a product, but we were able then to look into the actual problems of customers, and then that has really become the product. And when we kind of up-level some of the landscape and the Valo's vision, around providing visibility into the Salesforce configuration, who's doing what, and how they are configured. Could you maybe elaborate a little bit on some of the challenges when we think about also the costs of Salesforce usages and the licenses that exist in the environment? Everything in Salesforce starts with a license. You apply these licenses, integration licenses or user licenses, and there's also consumption-based licenses. And we were quite, I think in my view, quite quick to observe that the world is changing. What was an app built by humans for humans, now with apps and now in the future more AI has become quite complex or very complex to manage. Now as a side effect with the licenses, they provide access, then you have profiles, permission sets, sharing. It's quite a lot. So how do you envision, and what is, our vision around helping Salesforce administrators, platform owners to really entangle all of that access management complexity around identities?
So part of the problem of tending to put all these apps and connections into the same identities or the same user accounts, even human user accounts, that the administrator connects all of these services with his or her personal account.
Right.
And that's of course a problem. Like, for instance, what happens when that human user leaves the company, goes to work for somewhere else?
Mm-hmm.
Like if that user account is deactivated, then all those integrations stop working. So it's quite important to move them into their own integration user account. It may not be that the license type is an integration user, but it should at least be a separate account. But then, because all these licenses, like, okay, Salesforce has 5 free integration users, but outside that 5, all of these accounts cost money. So the license cost also becomes a motivation of building essentially less secure solutions, because you want to save on license costs, so you bundle all of those different apps and connections into the same accounts, and then you give them very wide access, because all of those applications that are using the same account will at least get the privileges of the highest need of those applications. So that's one of those challenges. So how do we solve this problem? Is that we solve the biggest challenge that there is here, which is to understand what are the permissions and accesses that each of those applications actually needs. What are they actually using? That is difficult to do in Salesforce and in other systems as well. How do you know what they actually need? And then how do you know how to set those permissions up in the right way, so that you don't have any disruption because you're giving too little access, but also you don't give too wide access, which will cause security challenges. And also with the advent of AI, it will cause all kinds of other challenges. We should really talk about what AI brings to the table here, because it's going to make this problem a lot worse. But essentially, in the world of Salesforce, especially because in Salesforce it's per user licensing, the security and the license cost are actually sort of tied together in a very, very concrete way.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, so when we think about like all of the complexity that administrators and architects in many organizations have to deal with every day, I think the big opportunity here is also to how do you quickly assess what you already have, how you design for a faster, better outcomes, and ideally something that maybe took days or weeks should now be available on your fingertips all the time, and to provide really easy to use tools. I read somewhere that Salesforce has more than 3,000 setup pages now, and when even in the Salesforce org that maybe has 500 users, that can have hundreds of profiles, hundreds of permission sets. Everything takes days to figure that out. It's just like time that it's away from helping to grow the business.
Yep. And of course, it's also insecure. If you don't really understand how things work, then you tend to give too much permission.
Right.
So and that's really a key problem. So in Salesforce, a very common way of doing this is that you basically download all the permission data into a spreadsheet, and then you start noodling like, okay, how should I create the perfect permission sets out of that? And oftentimes you do that by hiring a consultant to do it. So it's a big project. It's a lot of work. While with AI, you can actually do it much smarter and much faster. Better outcomes,
better results.
Better results, but also much faster and cheaper.
Right.
So that's definitely something that has sort of like a side effect of solving the problem. You also get a better business outcome.
Right. We have talked together with hundreds of customers in the last year, and if I would summarize one thing I've learned to take away from those, that majority of those are not really security experts. And of course, you and me both, we have long history in cybersecurity. But I think the challenge I think the Salesforce community overall has is that you have a data architect path. You can get Trailhead, and I actually event monitoring Trailhead was one of the first trails to do, and I've been a strong advocate of training the Salesforce community with different kinds of packages. And we did strategies for big data architecture, like what is big data and how to process those. But what are your thoughts on as complexity seems to grow every release there's something new. Administrators are struggling to keep up with these the metadata and the changes, and now they would need to be also security experts. So what solutions really are there?
Complexity is not just a Salesforce problem, but certainly there is a lot of complexity in Salesforce, especially around things like setup and permissions and sharing. It is a very complex model because you keep on adding more, and there are also solutions that are that Salesforce has acquired and merged into the technology stack.
Right.
So it adds to this complexity, and the solution that has emerged is Trailhead, which is a fantastic platform for learning and certifications and the whole ecosystem of consultants. But there is also another way, which is to provide a tool that helps you do this faster, and sometimes even without having all the skills of doing that through Salesforce setup. And that's what Valo does.
Basically, investing into a security solution to do the security work for you.
Yes. And so not just having all the skills, because the security is very complex. You can't really assume that every Salesforce administrator would be all the time in the know of all the threats and how the problems emerge. And the defaults in Salesforce are not always the most secure ones. So and this is a general problem with all systems, that when you get a new instance of a service, the defaults are not built to be secure. Right. So you need to tweak the settings, and you need to do things in a particular way for them to be secure.
Right.
And you can't assume that every Salesforce administrator or architect would always know exactly which setting should be in which order. And also when people are going into Salesforce and trying to get something to work, they will tweak these settings, put them into different positions, and eventually things start working, but the outcome might be an insecure setup.
Right. I remember building the Salesforce security health check tool, trying to help administrators or security-minded professionals coming to Salesforce to quickly know how the security is configured. And we also created a kind of a baseline template where you could have different kinds of baselines based on maybe compliance postures. And now if I look at the typical vanilla Salesforce orgs, I think they're 60-70%. So they're a lot of the defaults, like you said, are not actually at the high security standard, which I think further highlights this shared security model. Salesforce provides tools, but then you as a customer, you gotta know what you're doing, do the right thing, and unfortunately, I think in this market, access to those senior architects, senior admins who have the experience and the skill might be difficult to come by.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's double click a little bit on the access controls and this topic where Sheriff Feldman, I think, recently also highlighted that Salesforce is not pushing for the end of life for profile-based permissions, but they still recommend strongly and advocating that organizations would implement access in permission sets. This, I think, is a topic that keeps coming up every month or so in LinkedIn and many other forums, user groups, where organizations are looking into this complexity, and especially when auditing that, what does a user actually see, or being able then to limit the exposure of having everybody in sales reports access on only need to know basis. So I know the R&D team here in Finland is working on this Access Explorer and number of other major enhancements, helping customers on this particular access issue. Would you like to a little bit elaborate what's cooking in the Valo lab?
Yeah, so there are different kinds of projects that you need to do in terms of accesses, be they permissions or be they sharing. And you always need to sort of understand how my permissions and other accesses have been set up, and what is the outcome that I want, and how do I get there. And this is something that we're building tools for. How do you understand what your configuration today is, and how do you build the optimal set of accesses, and basically how do we help you achieve those? So that's what we're doing, and one of those big changes that are happening out there, even though yes, Salesforce is not at the moment setting a deadline for it, but is really moving away from profiles to permission sets, because that makes a lot of sense. The model where permissions are in profiles means that everybody who has that same profile has the same permissions. Also, the permissions should really be divided into basically jobs to be done. That what do you need to do in your role?
Outcomes.
The outcomes that you need to be able to do, and not what your profile in Salesforce is. Some companies have just a few profiles. Some companies have a really long list of profiles. But how do you have this sort of granular access control and this sort of best fit, and also modularity, so that it's as easy as possible to change it. So just add one permission to one permission set and everything works, instead of adding that to every profile. So yeah, I think Salesforce is doing the right thing and recommending you to move to permission sets. And I think probably most companies out there do have permission sets, even though they're mainly using profiles.
That's
so it's,
right.
it's sort of like a mixed hybrid model.
Yes.
So fully making the change where you go for permission sets and permission
profiles,
set groups.
like profiles would be only used for layouts and
yes.
But
Yeah,
the access control.
profiles are definitely not going away, but they would basically be just defining the experience, like whether or not your experience is about being a support agent or
Right.
a salesperson, and not exactly what access
But
is.
doing that in Salesforce setup, that sounds like a lot of work to plan and interview understand, like you need to first observe what your users are doing. You need to understand what their day looks like, what objects they're accessing, what they need to do in order for you to build that profile. So, like I would say most organizations today, they would steer away from this because they're looking at a mountain of work.
Yep, that's for sure. And also, even if they go and do it, it's probably like they will probably go for some sort of a low-hanging approach, low-hanging fruit approach, where they either create permission sets that have the same permissions as the profiles used to,
Right.
Which is actually not solving what Salesforce is solving with the permission sets at all, or they have some sort of like a half-hearted effort in creating a few shared permission sets. But with the Valo solution, you can actually get an optimized set, and also you can keep it up to date all the time. Because what happens with profiles is that suddenly you see more profiles being added all the time. But with permission sets, it's I would guess even worse, that you like keep on adding more permission sets until it becomes very, very complicated. But the solution that we're building will also help you continuously keep your set of access controls optimized. And I would mention sharing rules as well, because there are very little in terms of tools outside of Salesforce set up for sharing. Because Salesforce's access control model is more complex than just permissions. There's also the record level access, which is basically with sharing rules, you can deny people in certain territories or certain groups access to certain, for instance, data of certain customers. And this adds a very big level of complexity on top of the permissions. So we're looking at this whole thing. How do you do access in Salesforce the right way?
So to summarize, organizations should be looking into building permission sets based access in their Salesforce, and the primary drivers are to ensure not everybody in the organization is the same. They should only have access to what they need to do for their job, and that of course is then a driver for better compliance, security overall inside the organization. And then the opportunity then to spend labor and hours into that analysis, they should look into automation tools like Valo.
Absolutely, but I would add that this totally depends on your risk appetite and the environment where you're working at. So if you have regulation like Sarbanes-Oxley or something like that, then you actually have to minimize the permissions for certain types of things to the absolute minimum. But then in some other industry or in some other setup, you might have less of the need, but still you can't give administrative access to everybody. It's just not a smart thing to do. So there are shades of gray along the way, and you need to make a risk-based decision where your level goes, and we will also help with that. You can select whether or not you want to optimize for security or for simplicity, or like what is in the same way as you would like if you're navigating with a GPS. Like I want to get there fast, or I want to get there to avoid toll booths, or what is the way how you want to optimize your access. But I would highlight that this is not just about, okay, how do we solve this for people? This is about how do we solve it for applications. But increasingly, it's now how do we solve it for the AI? Because with humans and applications, they are like I wouldn't say humans are deterministic, but the applications are deterministic. They only do the things that they sort of do. Humans only do the things that they want to do or that they know how to do. So even if you give somebody administrative access to a human user, it's quite unlikely that they will go and create new integrations or delete records, something like that, because they don't even know how to do it necessarily. And they don't want to do it. They might do it accidentally, but still, probably bad things won't happen. But if you give AI too wide accesses, AI doesn't have any skills barriers. AI doesn't really have any common sense. AI does what it thinks is the right solution to the prompt that it gets. So it might actually hallucinate and start doing things that you can't imagine anybody doing, because it can, and it thinks that it's necessary. So when it comes to AI, access controls are really the barrier that you need to put in between the AI and your customers' data.
So if we now have admins or Salesforce platform owners in the audience who have made a decision now to look into their Salesforce access controls, what can they do in order to get their hands on Valo's AI-powered analysis to get started?
Go to App Exchange.
App Exchange.
Search for Valo.
All right.
Valo.
Great.
Easy as that. And we have a free 30-day trial, and you can see how you like it.
And Valo has a very fast way, being AI-first product, to immediately scan the organization. So there's also additional benefits, not just the permissions. So why don't we pivot the conversation a little bit to the app connections? We recently blogged about the security score and why it's important to understand what systems, especially now whether it's an app or AI, is connected to your Salesforce. Is this the actual data loader, fake version of data loader? And what it can do and what it is actually doing. And you also blogged about the scattered spider incident recently. Would you maybe describe in few words what is scattered spider and how it then connects to the overall app connections and understanding app level access to Salesforce?
Well, scattered spider as such is a community of, or a gang of hackers who've been breaching companies, big companies, well-known companies, and they've been doing it in a broader context than just Salesforce, but they have also been breaching Salesforce environments, and they are known for social engineering. So their sort of standard operating procedure is that they will actually pick up the phone and call a user in the organization. And
so they are targeting a Salesforce admin, perhaps?
Perhaps, or just a user that has wide access. Typically, for instance, like somebody working in support has access to a wide amount of customer data.
So maybe has a profile that has everything.
Yeah. And support is also easy because there is a support phone number that you can call.
Right.
So you don't even have to figure out who works at that company. You just call their support.
Yeah.
And then you talk to the support person that, hey, I'm calling from IT. And the technique that they've been using where data loader is related is sort of called consent phishing. So they essentially convince the person on the line, the person that they're calling, not to give out their password, but instead approving an application to connect into their Salesforce account. And the reason why this is sort of dangerous is that it's very easy, and the user might not even understand that there is something shady going on. The IT is asking to approve something in Salesforce. Instead of because people have been told not to give their password to somebody on the phone. And why would IT need your password? But the IT would. There might be a reason why the IT wants you to click allow. And after you click that allow, then their data loader or whatever application they're using gets access to the Salesforce org and can start downloading data. And that's really what's been happening. And there are other types of threats as well. So this security score that we've built is really related to this because there are maybe hundreds of applications that are connecting to a larger Salesforce org. And if the org is older, let's say 10 years, 20 years, there are historical applications that have been connecting there. Somebody tried something 15 years ago, But in Salesforce, by default, for connected apps, the access tokens, the refresh tokens, they never expire. They are forever tokens.
They're still there.
Yeah. So the token is still there, and you don't know if at the other end the token is still there, and who has that token. So maybe somebody hacked that service, or maybe that service was sold, or maybe something happened.
Could have been an M&A transaction, and company might.
Or maybe that service wasn't trustworthy to begin with. And so basically you want to limit the risk by actually revoking all the tokens and removing all the connected apps from your system that you don't need or that you don't use. And Valo brings you visibility into which of these applications are actually in active use, and also into how mature the security posture of these companies or vendors is. And especially if there is something where there isn't even a vendor, like maybe somebody created just a project in Heroku and that project still has access to your Salesforce, or maybe it's a software vendor from a country that is no longer considered to be something where your data can go to today with today's
compliance requirements.
Then you should really remove those, and we bring that visibility. Where is it connecting from? Is it connecting? Which objects it's reading? All of this, plus whether or not it's trustworthy or not, and we give you also an easy option of just revoking the token with a click.
Right. So you can see all the different categories of types of applications and what are active and who's really truly using them. I've heard some customers also using this to kind of identify legacy and tech debt and finding maybe some cost savings on duplicate solutions. You might have some similar solutions being used in different parts of the organization. When we think about the app score, so I think we have analyzed over 1,200, or is it close to 1,500 applications in the App Exchange and in the ecosystem, and given them a security score to help customers to make informed decisions around what systems are connected to their Salesforce. When we look into the overall bigger number, I think we had something like 20 to 25% had a low security score. Could you elaborate, like when you have a low security score from Valo, what are maybe some of the consequences for a solution to have a good 100% score versus a 20% score, and what that means, and how maybe organizations and listeners and the audience could make informed decisions to have more secure apps connecting to their production?
The fact that the security score is low means that Valo can't find any evidence that the security of that company is on a mature level. So there either is no privacy policy, or the privacy policy is vaguely written, or maybe there is even indication that the data is being sold. The terms of services doesn't have certain like standard clauses that protect the customer from the vendor in a way, and there is no evidence of security certifications or any sort of external vetting. So that is what it means. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the application is insecure, but it means that there is no like evidence that we can find that would make us think that, okay, this provider has mature security practices, and that there's no risk. So then you need to make the risk assessment, like, do we need this application, and have we verified that this vendor is actually somebody we want to trust? Because oftentimes in these cases, what ends up happening is that this application was actually connected by somebody, because by default in Salesforce, everybody has access has the ability to connect new apps into Salesforce. You actually need to do special things to take this privilege from users. So it can be anybody in your Salesforce has decided years ago maybe to put their trust into somebody and give them access to your Salesforce. And you need to think like, okay, like, do we agree with that decision by that user? And oftentimes it also makes sense to restrict the amount of connected apps and different integrations you have in your system, not just from a pure confidentiality or data integrity perspective, which is what people think when you say security, but there is another aspect which is availability, because every one of those applications can actually sort of go crazy and start consuming a lot of API calls. And if that happens, then you hit the limit, and then you have a 24-hour window of API limits. And until that window is sort of clean, all of your applications that are consuming API calls will stop working. So it might be that somebody from your organization has connected an app that starts consuming a lot of API calls, and suddenly your key integration between your ERP and your Salesforce stops working, and business stops.
Right. And Valo, of course, provides the true observability and notifications for all of these activities. And this is a great segue to our last topic and the theme around observability and kind of monitoring your Salesforce versus doing one-time projects. I think many organizations often use Salesforce Optimizer or these types of health scans to get their certain part of their business process into a better place. What would be your maybe top 2, top 3, takeaways for the audience? Why investing in observability and this continuous monitoring of Salesforce compared to doing a quarterly health scan or security improvements projects every 6 months? What's the difference?
Well, the difference, of course, is that like if the main difference is that if something bad starts happening, let's take the example of the API call thing. It starts creeping up. You might spot it 3 weeks early, and you can still do something about it before the actual disruption happens. But if you only look at the API limits once every 3 months, then actually might be that the problem happens in the middle of that review sequence. The other thing is that if you, for instance, look at a new connected application immediately when it gets connected, you can probably easier figure out, okay, why is this connecting and is it needed, and you know that, okay, this is connecting. But then if you look at those like only once every 3 months, then it's more work for you to try to figure out, okay, why did this user connect it 3 months ago or 2 months ago, and why are these applications in use? So it's much easier to do it continuously. Plus, if there is a real security problem, let's say, one thing that Valo also does is that if one of your SaaS services, one of the services that are connecting into your Salesforce has a data breach, we will notify you about that. And then you can go and revoke the token and do the necessary investigations and create a new token if the service is now okay. But
so Valo is like a security admin in your admin team, taking a continuous look into the security issues happening related to the apps and giving you these insights all the time.
Yeah. So if you would spot that like two months later, might be that's the difference between a data breach and a close call.
Right. That's a major thing. Well, it's been a pleasure talking to you, Mika. It's been great to talk about it. So now, as a summary, if we have anyone in the audience would like to see what Valo could do to your Salesforce security and governance and productivity overall, go to App Exchange and look for VALO. And you can also connect with us on LinkedIn. We'll post our LinkedIn profiles in the video. If you have any questions to Mika or myself, feel free to reach out anytime, and see you in the next episode. Thank you, Mika. Last question. What are you going to be spending your summer weeks now in this beautiful sunny Finland?
Well, the kind of standard, boring Finnish way, summer cottage.
Summer cottage. Oh,
Yes.
that's great. So a little bit of sauna and jumping in the lake and some fishing.
Getting to peace and quiet.
Yeah, I think that's important when with these hectic schedules over startup founder.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward also to getting to the nature here myself.
Yeah, Finland has about 200,000 lakes, so and not a lot of people. So everybody has a lake that they can go to and just relax.
Right. And maybe some new roadmap ideas and new features are born in the Finnish summer cottages.
Yeah, absolutely. Like as a entrepreneur, you can really never get out of the creative process.
That's right. Well, thank you again. See you in the next episode. Bye.